Whatever your hand finds to do, work with all your might, as to the Lord and not to man, for ye serve the Lord Christ. Colossians 3:23. Hello, ladies. Welcome to Homemakers Radio. I'm making these videos for my blog so that you can go over there and listen without the distraction of the YouTube background. And you can also comment or read other people's comments, see what they have to say about this. I started this so that you'd have something to listen to and to keep you company while you work. Sometimes homemaking can feel isolating and it can feel tedious. You're just doing the same thing over and over, and you might present a beautiful meal to someone, but it's gone and all that effort. And so it's nice to have someone to listen to. I know I have my favorites. I'm still stuck on some of my old videos that I listen to in the background as I go, but I thought it might be fun to create something for you to listen to. I never go back and listen to my videos. If I did, I'd take them all off, because the first time I tried listening to it, I saw so many mistakes and heard so many blunders. I got very discouraged and didn't make one for 2 or 3 weeks. So it's your encouragement that keeps me going, and I would like to welcome you to Homemakers Radio. And I don't have comments on the YouTube channel, but you may go over to my blog, for which I have provided a link in the description box, and you can listen there and leave a comment if you like. And that way I don't have too many social things to manage online. All I have is my blog and my phone, and I do use Pinterest once in a while, but I don't interact too much with people. But I want you to feel like that you can have somebody to listen to that's going to encourage you and going to keep you motivated. And of course, eventually, when you use some of the principles that I use here, eventually you're going to be self-motivated. You won't really need a coach, because you will work yourself up to a point where you are so enthused about your home and your homemaking career that you don't really need anybody to encourage you or keep you going. And one of the things that I believe is that you should never do anything that never require anything of anyone else that you aren't willing to do yourself. And so I try not to say anything here that I myself have not experienced. I'm just expressing my opinion and beliefs based on my constitutional right to do that, and my freedom, and also on my own experience. This is just my own experience, and I don't expect you to copy me, but I also am not going to tell you something that I haven't tried or experienced. And the other thing is regarding children, and I believe we're all children in a way. They should have a happy, carefree childhood, free from worry and heavy responsibility. And in these current times, or any times, and I'm telling you, this is nothing compared to what is going to happen when the news media sees that everyone is calming down and thriving actually in their homes, and developing strong families, and still managing to earn a living and being educated. They're going to find some other tragedy to tear us down and make us worry. And so what you want to do is keep your home free of it. And if you let these people in your home, who would let someone in their home that came in to tell you what a rotten, stinking bunch of people you are, and how you're all failing, and how you're all just no good, and you're guilty, and you're causing this and you're causing that? Who would let somebody come and talk daily to their family, talk down daily to your family, and demean you and demoralize you so that you can't get up and do anything because your mind has been so debilitated? Who would do that? Well, you do that when you listen to these people on the media who have been from the very beginning. And I showed you in some of my past videos, I told you how way back in the olden days, way back even as far back as George Washington, the newspapers were doing this. And the idea is to defeat and discourage people from making any progress. You know, I told you before that there are people who are not happy if you are happy. And their job, they feel, is to knock down happiness when they see it sitting somewhere. So the first thing that we want to do is start with our appearance. And the reason for that is that appearance gives you a starting point. And all of us, I'm sure, have uh, woke up in the morning and felt discouraged right away, just almost immediately. Whether it is, one of the things I think that discourages me the most is seeing a mess that I just haven't been able to conquer, a place, a storage area, or something that's really bothering me. Uh, Things that I just have not gone through yet, and this probably happens when you become older, like me, and maybe not so much when your children are younger, but you can get behind and you wake up just depressed already. Before you even get out of bed, you wake up and you're discouraged. Or maybe some of you have had some personal failings, or maybe maybe you're overweight. Like I think most of us feel we're 20 pounds overweight, and me in particular. And you wake up, you start thinking about that, and already the day is destroyed because you're discouraged. So what I'd like to do is start the day out with appearance, because that takes a little of the edge of that off. Start with your appearance, because it says I'm put together. Something is put together, at least. Something is looking orderly. Something is looking a little smoother. And something is looking less disheveled. So at least start with your appearance. You can control that. You might not be able to control that awful mess you've got in that room. Like I've got one of those rooms, but it's archival. It's something that you develop as you get older. And I've got a lot of stuff from the olden days back there, and I have several problems. And one is books, because I had wall-to-wall books I lived before the internet, and so I have the books to prove it. And I will be reading out of one of them to you today, and I wanted to talk to you about a lot of things. And of course, I want to post more often, and so I jot down little notes of things that I could say as I'm going through and doing my daily work. And of course, I end up with a mess here, and then I have to copy it over, and then I still can't get to it. But I'm going to attempt it today. So if you're getting up discouraged, the first thing you want to do is let's back up. How about you offer a prayer? As soon as just replace every negative thought and feeling with a prayer. Or if you have a verse that you'd like to quote or learn to quote, even if you don't know what it means, but you think it might be of some benefit. Somebody told me once it was from, I believe it was Isaiah, whose mind is stayed on thee. And it meant someone whose mind is fixed on God will be peaceful. So, goodness, I can't think of what the verse is. I'll probably put it in the post for you. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. And I believe it comes from Isaiah. And I'll put that in there for you. And so you wake up and you just start to feel uneasy, then you say a verse like that. And every time these discouraging thoughts come, repeat it. You'll feel ridiculous. You'll feel like you're just being mechanical. But what you're doing is you're replacing the defeating thoughts with the encouraging thoughts, with the thoughts that will help you build up your life. And another thing you can do, if you can't think of a verse that you like, and you're not familiar with anything in the Bible, is start out with a prayer. Ask God to help you. And these prayers can replace all these discouraging negative thoughts about your failures, about the condition of your house. Maybe you've just moved in or moved out, or maybe you have exchanged rooms, or maybe you have a very busy life and things have gotten behind. A lot of changes in life. I've heard ladies say that they were fine with their organizational skills until one of their children got married, and right after that the other children got married, and then the parents passed away, and it was just one thing after another. And it was trying to take other people's houses apart and put things away, get garage sales, get in order, and their own house began to crumble. And so replace these negative thoughts with a prayer or a verse, and this will help a lot. So I wanted to start out with appearance because it's a starting point, and it is something that you can manage. And it is something that you can control. Now, as far as people are all concerned about their weight, and that's one thing I've noticed, is that nobody is really very happy with their weight. I mean, we all have problems where we wish we were a little more in shape and firmer. And as ladies at home, we want to be our best. We want to be healthy and strong, and also we want our clothes to fit nice. We want to look nice. And so one of the things that I discovered about getting yourself ready, we are having a rainy day and there's pollen in the air too. And that's something, and it all comes at once, is the appearance, especially when you fix your hair and your face, causes you not to think about the habit of wanting to munch on something all the time. And I noticed that if I wore a little lip gloss or a little lip balm or even some lipstick, that I wasn't as eager to put something in my mouth because it was going to mess it up. And so that might be a nice point for you too. And also, if you'll wear your dress sometimes without your apron, you don't want to mess it up with food, so you're not going to eat as much. Now, one of the lessons that I learned about appearance, and one of the reasons I think that everybody should start with appearance, and that's a starting point, a lot of homemakers in the past have felt like they didn't have any talent. And they will say, well, I'm a homemaker, I'm a housewife because I just didn't have any skills, I didn't have any education, I didn't have any talent. But in a way, you are starting your learning life and your learning experience, and you're building up your knowledge through this life at home. For example, many women who have been home now the last couple of months with their children have developed new skills in the home. And appearance, you can start with appearance. Now you're in the bathroom, you're getting ready for the day, you're fixing your hair. Well, what are you learning? You're learning a knowledge of hairdressing that maybe you had not had before. You can't run to the hairdresser all the time, and it's expensive. So you're learning things about your own health and your own hair, what's best for you and what works best for you, and how you can arrange it so that it's beautiful and what works best for you. And you may even be studying it a little bit and learning. I had a book years ago before the internet. I had a book on hairdressing, and it was very interesting. It was how to coil your hair and get it up off your neck and different ways to wear it. And I also learned to cut my children's hair and my hair, and I learned it from a book. And so there's a skill you develop. So there's a talent, there's a skill, there's some knowledge right there that you develop just by getting dressed in the morning. You also learn what looks best on you, what feels best on you. You learn a little bit about cloth and clothing. You learn a little bit about shoes and socks, and you start to observe because you're wearing things at home that you like, and you're developing some knowledge. So there you go. You've got some more skills now. So it's like adding to your faith knowledge. And so then you learn other ways. And as you go through, let's say, homemaking, now the next step, of course, is you've got a schedule or a list. I don't like to follow, 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. I could never keep up. I'm always behind. And so then you make a list and you start to itemize your list. Well, you're developing another skill. You're developing the skill of deciphering between what is urgently needed to be done, and then on another list, what you possibly hope to do and want to do, but it's not urgent, and another list as what maybe future down the line for further days, other weeks. So you start dividing these lists up into what you need to do and what you have to do and what you'd like to do. And in these lists, I always include a little sitting down time, a little time to go through one of my favorite Victorian magazines and have a cup of tea. Oh, and before you go, there's not going to be anything to watch here, and I totally forgot, but I mentioned tea, so I wanted to show you my teacup. Now, this is one of the teacups sent by the mysterious lady who won't tell me who she is. when she sent me a set of 6, and I'm saving 3 of them, because I have dresses cut out that actually match this so well. Um, Not this one, but there are 3 others that I haven't showed you yet. I'm going to show you. And I think the reason people send presents and don't tell you who they are is they don't like the gushing and the thanking, you know. And so anyway, isn't this lovely? And it's by Brew to a Tea. It's a company called Brew to a Tea, and it's from Amazon, I think. I just love it. And it came in a box of 6, and they were all neatly in shaped styrofoam. So I wanted to show you this teacup before I go, and start sitting down. Make sure you include that in your list of your, whatever you want to call it, a schedule. So I wanted to show you that before you go. Now, if you've got something to do, and you need to fold something, unload something, load something. Even if you go outside and you've got to water something, plant something, pick up something, sweep your front porch, you could probably take your device with you and listen as you go. I wish that I could do that more often. It's often nice to get ideas from other people and listen. And so I have my favorite music or singing that I like to hear when I'm working, and I will include every now and then on my blog. That's why I want you to listen to them on my blog. I'll include a hymn that, if you'll listen to a hymn, you'll find that later on in the day or week, you're humming it. You're starting to, that's another thing you can do to replace discouraging thoughts, is hymns, because they give your mind good things to think about. And so when you think that you're not talented, you start being a homemaker and you'll find you're adding more talent as you go by, more knowledge and more skills. Or there are other ways to develop talent besides an education, a formal education, and one would be you can learn anything without a formal education. And we learned that as we were growing up. For example, the way that you speak, the way that you live, and the skills that you develop as you develop homemaking. And I mentioned several. One was you learn about your appearance. You learn some things. And the next was you make your list, and you learn how to categorize things. And then the next thing is following the list, which is a little bit more daunting. And finding out how much time it actually takes to do things, so that you know how to organize that list according to what's going to be quicker and what's going to take longer. There are some long-term things you might list. So one of the things that I like about, one of the reasons that I began doing this is because over the years, when my children were little, I began to be a little disappointed in some of the ladies' days that we had. I'd go to a ladies' day, but you'd have to leave your children home, and the church would have a ladies' day, and it would be almost an all-day thing, and you'd have to leave everybody home, and they would hire a speaker who would speak on something that somehow just couldn't penetrate my brain, and I couldn't relate to it. And I realized that young women at home really need to go away from some of these ladies' days with a new skill, or with a new attitude, or with a new purpose, and a vision of how to raise their family, how to keep their home, and how to serve the Lord at home. And sometimes, so many times we don't. So many times it's a lot of fun for the ladies, and they have wonderful luncheons. I'll have to say wonderful. And everybody dresses up, and it's beautiful, but the lesson is often not appropriate for everybody. And I've often been disappointed, thinking I had taken all those hours away from my home, and I did not come home with one single skill or knowledge or anything that would help my temperament, or help my abilities, or help me love my children more, or care for my husband and my home better. And so these women that were speaking in these ladies' days were not actually following 1 Timothy 5:14 or Titus 2, or any of the things that dealt with biblical aspect of womanhood, um, and were not very helpful. I did several times join groups in the neighborhoods of future homemakers of, and they would have you come and bring a casserole dish, but again, the children weren't welcome. And the other thing was they would have some kind of a craft or a something that they proposed that everyone do, and you had to bring these supplies and do it, and that was apparently just to give the homemaker a break from her house and go and do something else. But I didn't find that very valuable, and some of the crafts were totally useless for me. And so this gives me a chance to teach the ladies' day or a ladies' class that might be of some value to someone, something that I would have liked to have had. Now, I've been a preacher's wife for nearly 50 years and have taught a lot of classes, and always thought, oh, I wish I had taught this. I wish I had taught that. Well, this gives me a chance to do it, and if you're willing to listen, it might be helpful too. So it also helps with some of the lessons I was never able to teach as my children were growing up, because you just can't get to everything. So this is what's helpful. Now, I have a newsletter, and some of you have sent me your newsletters, which I just love, and I just love how this is going, that ladies are writing their own newsletters, because it gives you a chance to pour out your heart on a piece of paper and write things that are lovely. And I have gotten some very lovely newsletters. If you haven't got mine yet, it's because I haven't sent it out yet, and I'm hoping to get to that today. So I haven't forgot about you. So if you've sent me a newsletter, I'm going to send you one, and I also get usually put a picture of it on the blog, which I'll try to remember to do. Another thing too is I will try to include the Fly Lady link on the sidebar of my blog here, so that if you have need of somebody to coach you and to get you so that you can get focused and get going on your homemaking, and you seem to be out of control, you can go to the Fly Lady site, and there are schedules you can print out, and there are a lot of other things you can print out. I've got a notebook with some of that stuff in there. There are a lot of free things you can print out to help you to know what to do when, especially if you haven't grown up at your mother's elbow learning the routine of a home. It's really good to have a place like Fly Lady that has it'll tell you, seasonally and even daily what to do, and she too begins with the appearance. Now, I always advise to wear shoes that you like, and I have the little ankle boots, which I just think are prettier and more feminine, and they cover your feet quite nicely, and you walk more gracefully in them. And so everybody has their own method of doing things. So I will post that on the sidebar, so you can go there. And now for myself, I didn't care to join Fly Lady coming in the email, because there were too many emails, and a lot of them were for household cleaning products that I didn't need anymore. So I just go to the site and find what is the week's zone and what's the week's schedule, and that's what I enjoy doing, and I can print off some of it. So now for housekeeping. So I've taught you a little bit about appearance, and want to go into housekeeping and homemaking. And do you ever, if you are a homemaker, or if you're a new homemaker, a seasoned homemaker, a new homemaker, we all go through these things. This attitude is, I wish that this were different. I wish that things were different. I wish that today I didn't have to focus on this and I could do something else. And I remembered I was playing. I had a DVD player someone sent me, which is very nice because you can take it around, and I was playing Love Comes Softly by Jeanette Oak, and it was a book written by Jeanette Oak, which is a Canadian author, and the lady named Marty, Sarah, who was an older, more experienced woman, said to Marty, "There's no place in this country wasting time thinking about your life's wants. There's no place in this country to waste time thinking about your wants. Your life's about needs now." And I always remember that every time I play that through, thinking, what in the world does that mean? It means you've got to do what you've got to do right now, which needs to be done in order to take care of your family and take care of yourself. There's no place in this country wasting time thinking about your wants. Your life's about needs now. And especially if you're blessed to have a little family around you, their needs come first. And that kind of organizes your life, your daily life for you. But some people whose children are grown now will find themselves walking around in circles at first thinking, where do I start? Because there's no one there to start you. You don't have to fix breakfast for anyone, and maybe you don't have to be up so overloaded with laundry, and the house stays in fairly good condition. But so it does help to have a list of things that you need to go through, things that you need to do, and think about your need. What is the most needed thing right now? So there's no place in this country to waste time thinking about wants. Your life's about needs now. So the first thing I wanted to tell you before I get too far gone on this radio talk is to take care of your mind. And the reason I say that is, we're all very sensitive about our bodies, aren't we? And we pick up something. I try to avoid buying things in boxes, cans, bottles, or packages, and try to just shop the outer perimeters of the grocery store and get all the fresh things that I need from your vegetables, your fruits, your dairies, and your meats, and try to cook that way. But it's always wise to have some things that you keep that are not perishable. So I have been buying a little bit more of that and stocking it in my little pantry. And as I'm walking around the grocery store, and I notice women, they will read the label. They want to know how much salt is in it. They want to know how many things are in it that are not really good for you or not natural, and we're all real sensitive to that, aren't we? We read the label because we don't want to not feel good. We want to be able to eat and to feel healthy and strong, and we want to build our bodies up, not tear them down. So I am going to translate this a little bit to your mind, all right? Take care of your mind. And if you don't, you'll feel crazy. And one of the reasons we all feel so crazy every now and then, y'all have those like, things are just kind of eerie and weird around here, is what has been in your mind and what you have allowed to come in your mind. And you will nourish your mind with your thoughts, and your thoughts will be planted there by what you've heard, what you've read, and what you have been watching. And so I want to say, if you want to, you have to cleanse your mind just like you cleanse your body. And some of you on special diets will have a cleansing tea, or a cleansing, you have a cleansing day if you start a diet. And so you need to cleanse your mind too, because that's really important. And the Bible says, love God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. And we skip the mind, don't we? We say, oh, the mind, that's our area. I'll read what I want. That's my area. And we forget that God owns the mind too, and He wants us to love with all our minds. So you have to cleanse your mind, and you have to nourish it with the right things. Then you have to water it, and then you have to reap a good harvest. And so you'll be what you read, what you hear, and what you think. And you may have to go on a diet, a mind diet. And so this means you're only going to read or watch things that are lovely, that are pure, and that are good. And we hate to do that, don't we? Because we think, well, maybe we're just burying our head in the sand, or maybe we're just living in a dream world. And by the way, the ostrich does not bury its head in the sand, and just go look that up. It's got its ear to the ground, and it's also watching for it's watching its eggs, and it's watching for enemies, and it's listening to footsteps. So, but we always hate to do that because we feel like it's less intelligent if we don't listen to all the news and all the bad things that are going on, we feel like, well, maybe we're just kind of checking out mentally, or we're just behaving as though we're just kind of off our rockers because we don't want to hear it. But I would say it's the same thing as nourishing your body. Would you deliberately put stuff in your body that's poison, knowing that it's going to make you break down and not be as functional? But yet we allow poison to come into our minds. And I think as homemakers, it's very important to cleanse that mind and to keep it active. And I read things to you because if you can find something to read that's good for you and to keep your mind healthy and happy, is so important, because just as the body is. And what's the point of having a healthy body if you don't have a healthy mind? Have you ever thought about that? And so you have to take care of your mind. Otherwise, you'll just end up feeling like you're bonkers. So you take care of your mind. Whatever you put in your mind is going to affect how you take care of your home, how you take care of your family. And while I'm talking about taking care of your home and homemaking, I think one of the first things that you can do is make sure that your kitchen is clean. Make sure your trash has been taken out, and have a sniff at your garbage can and clean that out and get the smells down. Your bathroom, make it very sanitary, and your laundry room too. Get your clothes washed, because that makes, the thing is, in a house, everything's in the same little building, and it's not like the institutions, where everything is separate. Because in the house, all this stuff is done in the same house, so you have to be really careful about keeping it clean. And so what I wanted to say about that was, there's cleaning, and it can get very tedious because you're always cleaning and you're doing it over and over, and it would be nice to add a little nice touch afterwards, and that's what decorating is all about. Like, for instance, a little glass of fresh cut flowers from outside, or a nice smelling fancy soap in the bathroom, or just some little thing to top off the finished product. It's like putting a bow on top of a package. When you finish cleaning the sink, maybe you will add something there that looks good, or put a clean towel on the little towel rack in the kitchen. And so where decor is concerned, I wanted to stop a little bit and talk about that, because I got into decorating because we never had a very expensive house, or a house with any particular interesting features in it. And I found that if I could hang something on the wall, it would be something that children couldn't get into and they couldn't reach, and it still would make the house look nice. And also, it would take away the attention from the cracks in the wall or from some flaw in the house, and also add interest. And it would even add architectural interest, because then I could have the style of home that I actually wanted. And one thing that I found out, I live in the manse, that's the preacher's home. It doesn't belong to me, but it's the manse. And what I decided to do with the front room, which is commonly called the living room or the lounge, or if you want to call it a parlor, because in the olden days, they had a front room. A lot of the houses had a front room, which was just for admitting company. They didn't go to the personal areas. They didn't go to the kitchen. They didn't go and use all your other rooms. But there was just one room kept, one little area, not a big area, kept where you could admit visitors, and you could bring in tea, and it was always prepared. And so what I decided to do with that front room was, because this was the manse, this was the preacher's home, I wanted to create an area with that front room, because everybody else had their own areas that they liked better to live in, and not very many people would gather in there. That would be an area where the church members could come, and it would always be ready for them. And so I have my ladies' Bible class there, and so that is decorated in a way that inspires them. It's not a room that has to be functional in any other way. It's just to sit in. So I can have more things to look at there, and that's where I get my creative decorating done, and I'll change it around every now and then. I'll change the pictures around, put one on one wall, switch it around, change the end tables around, and put the different cushions on the couch, and keep it interesting for them. And so that was what I do with that room. And one of the scenes that I liked in the Hallmark movie Magic of Ordinary Days, about the woman who came to marry a lonely farmer, and they got married in the preacher's home, in his living room. And many times, and my mother and father got married in a preacher's home in White Horse City, Yukon Territory. And of course, they didn't have pictures or anything of that, so that's sad. But they got married in the living room, and that was where a lot of people got married in the 1940s and 30s, in the preacher's house, in the front room there. And so I wanted to create an atmosphere there that someone could have a reception there, or if they wanted to get married there, they could. But it was for people that couldn't afford a wedding or couldn't afford to get married, and they didn't often use the church building in the olden days. Was not often used for weddings. Instead, people got married in a garden or some other place. I just thought that was an interesting part of history, that getting married in the church building wasn't always the way it was. But I wanted to keep that front room decorated, because that way the other rooms are functional, and there's nothing in the way, and there's not some little thing sitting there that someone could knock over. Everything's useful in the other rooms. But I did create more decorating in that room, and you have seen it in the background when I do lessons in there. Now, another thing that I want to say before I read to you is the way that you deal with people. I always like to include people at the end, because we hone our skills on our own people and our own family. And some of us who've already raised our families start looking back and thinking, oh, I should have done that different. I should have said that differently. Oh, and we get upset with ourselves because we start remembering that we could have dealt with something a lot differently. But you're developing a skill. You're developing some knowledge. So you can add all these things. You're actually adding knowledge. And if you think that you went into homemaking with no knowledge, and that you are a homemaker or a housekeeper because you're not qualified for anything else, then you start adding all the things that you've learned, that creates a big amount of knowledge. And some of these people that have had to do without their servants, or have had a sudden crash in their economy, have found out that they don't have any knowledge. They cannot survive without all this extra help, without the housekeepers, without the food preparation, without the transportation, with all that. But when you think of it, your knowledge is so great. If you can drive a car, if you can go to the airport and back, if you can go and do comparison shopping, if you know how to prepare a meal, if you know how to prepare yourself, if you know how to arrange a house, if you know how to plant a garden, you have so much more skill than an entertainer. In fact, during this time, I have often run across a video of some of the entertainers complaining about how bored they are because they're actually nothing without a script or a camera. And so you have so much more skill. You need to be keeping a notebook about how you're progressing and what you're doing. It is so interesting. And so the other thing I wanted to say about dealing with the home and with the family, because we're going to go into people and relationships, is it's very important that you don't devalue your home and your family and your country. It's very important. It's not good for, even if you don't have children, it's not good to be in an atmosphere where you think that you're just a bunch of rotten people and that you deserve every bad thing that happens to you, and that you there's no way you can redeem yourself, and there's no way you can change things. It's very bad for you. It's very bad for your mind. And I told you about, renewing your mind and cleansing your mind, keeping it nourished, and reaping a good product from it. And whatever you're thinking is what will manifest itself in your life and in your homemaking, even in your decorating. It tells how you feel about life, and in the way you dress tells how you feel about life, and it starts with your mind. And it's very bad to devalue yourself. It's very bad to devalue your job. It's very bad to devalue your home life or to let others devalue it. You say, when someone says something like, well, you're not very smart, you just respond, I actually am quite smart. You'd be surprised at some of the things I know how to do, or some of the things I know. Or they'll say, you really don't have much skill, do you? You say, actually, I do have some skill. And then you ask them, can you knit? And especially if it's a man running you down, some member of the family or some friend of the family, and they start running you down, you ask them, can you bake bread? Or can you knit? Or can you teach a child how to read? And so this, or some little thing. Do you know how to dress hair? Do you know how to sew? And don't let people devalue you, and always gently correct them. And when they say, well, this isn't much of a career, you say, actually, it is. And where you get this from, where I got it from, was an old movie in the olden days called Gigi, and Gaston was a friend of the family's that was criticizing Gigi's. She was growing up and she had a new dress on, and he didn't like it because it made her appear more grown up, and before that he was just a friend of this girl that lived with her grandmother, and he said, that dress makes you look like a giraffe with a goiter. She had one of those high-necked Victorian dresses on, and so she just calmly looked at herself in the mirror and she says, I think it's a very nice dress. And I've never heard of all the gossip I've read about you in the papers, I've never heard about you being an expert in fashion. So you can learn a lot from these witty, strong replies, and use them. Don't let people run down your life, and don't be devaluing of it. If someone says something about what you're doing or asks what you're doing, just say, I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually doing pretty good. I'm getting along just fine, and I'm learning a lot in getting a handle on everything. But don't go on and devalue yourself by saying, I just can't get anything done. I just can't, because then they will conclude that you need to go get some other kind of job, and then you'll be arguing about that. I think that's really important. So today, I have told you about this book before, The American Girl's Handy Book, and you might have one in your own country called something else. Probably every country's got a book like this written in the 1800s for girls, and there was one for boys. And it was just basic seasonal skills. It starts with spring and goes through the winter. Things you can do with nature, things you can do indoors. Talks about how to put on plays and how to just occupy yourself. I sure wished I had had it when I was younger, but many of us who went to public schools found ourselves wanting in a lot of these areas. When this published in the 1800s, 1857 to 1920, when these were published, this would have been so much more helpful. But I'm thankful that I get to have it now, because now I can do it. So it's never too late to have a happy childhood, is it? Okay, this is called The Walking Club. I thought this was interesting. Now, I want to read quite a bit of it to you, and so this will be a little bit longer than an hour, and I hope you don't mind. And I wanted to also warn you that if you're homeschooling, I've got another book I want to read to you another time called New World History and Geography. These are curriculum. These are for Christian schools. These are books for school. But you can't depend on all of those for your child's knowledge or for your ability to teach, because really what homeschooling is, it's part what you've already got in real life and using what you have and see and experience in life, and part curriculum. You can't say, well, we studied this curriculum, now you're ready for the world. You can't do that, because they can pass all that and they can increase their knowledge and still have no ability to be wise in the decisions that they make, and still be really dumb about people or about life. So you want to be careful that you're not focusing all the time on books and learning material, but on life. And there's some people that are book smart, but they're not people smart. We want to make sure that you have a balanced life. And so when we began homeschooling, there wasn't any curriculum. So what we did was we just used what we had. I had a set of books about the different countries of the world, and they were, I believe, might have been about 12 of those, just little slim volumes from something that Mr. S had before he was married, and not real adequate, but enough, to know something about every country of the world. And we had a chalkboard and some chalk, and we had a globe, and we had the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, and we had a Bible, and we had, I'm thinking we had a lot of paper and pencils. And I had to figure out, and I drew on my own upbringing and my own childhood, and I had to figure out, we had a set of Mcguffy's readers, which they finally started publishing things for homeschooling in the 1980s. So I got probably the first set that ever came out was from Mcguffy's readers. So we used a little of that. Those were written in the 1800s, so they had to kind of translate them to the current era. And then I had a set of paints and some canvas paper, and we had a Walter Foster art book on how to paint scenery and one how to paint roses, and we just used whatever we had. And I knew how to teach them how to write a story, and then we had a songbook, so we taught them the notes and how to sing and things like that. But then this curriculum came out, which was quite handy because you'd get a box and it would have one each subject, and but you have to be really careful with that, because you cannot assume that your child is educated just because they went through all those books, because homeschooling is about life, and it's about watching their character, watching the expression on their face. And see, a lot of people, what I've told you about troubled people in the past and how to deal with these troubled people who are always giving you a hard time, and a lot of this began in childhood and was not corrected or caught by the parents. And that's one of the values of homeschooling, is that you're going to look at their countenance every day, and you're going to see how they're feeling and if they're all right, and you become a family, become a support group for one another. So I want to talk to you about the Walking Club, and it's from the American Girl's Handybook. I've read this to you before, and I've also shown you the teacup before. We're recycling a lot of things. Okay, the Walking Club. The sound of girlish voices is suddenly heard in the quiet village streets. And by the way, there's the boys' handybook too, and it has similar things in it for boys, more of a masculine nature. As our walking club, issuing from the house of one of its members, starts off on the first tramp of the season. Now this can be translated to the home. So let's say you've got some people in your home and you want to form a walking club, you just use them as your members. Now if you haven't got anybody at all, like I would just do it myself. And I made little nature bags, and they were just little calico cotton bags that I put a ribbon around. You could put the ribbon around your shoulder, and you put things in it to bring home and to create a little nature scene. And so if I were alone, completely alone, I would just do it myself. You could take a book like this and educate yourself. And I said, in the very beginning, you should never ask or require of anything that you're not willing to do yourself. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go through this book and I'm just going to do it. So I formed my own walking club, and I walk every day. And I take a cup of tea with me and often leave it somewhere and then find the teacup next spring when we start mowing again. Mr. S has spent the last 2 days on the tractor cutting the grass on this massive area around the manse and the church building. And so it's just like a beautiful park out there. So I go on my walking club every morning. It's just me. You can do just about anything you want at home, and you can write in your journal, I went with the walking club today. And one of the things I used to do with a farm neighbor was, she had a beautiful flower bed, and whenever I walked past her house, I admired it so much. and always wanted to have a garden club, but of course you can't have a garden club out here. It's just too far away. Everybody's too busy, and it would just take more time. So I gave her a prize, and I'd buy some little thing at the dollar store, a little windmill or something to stick in her ground and say, you won the prize this month. And she would give me a prize too, and we would give each other plants and say, this is your prize because you are Garden of the Month. And we started a Garden of the Month club, and it was just us two. It was so much fun. You don't have to miss out on anything. You can even have a library group of your own family and yourself, and you can have book reviews, and you learn how to review a book and how to talk about it. The gay chatter and bubbling laughter blend with the twittering and chirping of the birds fluttering amongst the budding trees, and all these merry sounds seem in perfect harmony with the youthful gladness of the bright morning. You don't have to tell you that the modern cell phones are so good in capturing the sound of a bird, because somebody sent me a little recording on text of a meadowlark. I couldn't believe it. It was just absolutely beautiful. Years ago, we would go to the beach and we'd try to record the waves, on a tape recorder, and it just wouldn't pick up anything very distinctly. But these new phones are just wonderful. So you could also start a bird watching club. There is a subtle power and exhilaration in the spring sunshine that stimulates the blood and sends it tingling through our veins, as with the light springing steps we quickly leave the village behind us and penetrate into the outlying country, stopping now and then to secure a branch of the downy pussy willow or brilliant red blossom of the maple, and again to admire a distant view where the trees seem enveloped in a hazy mist of delicate color. I know that it's autumn in some parts of the world, but you can still do this in the autumn, and autumn is absolutely delightful. The two favorite seasons are autumn and spring. On we go, exploring sequestered spots or entertaining deep into the woods in search of early wildflowers. Now, of course, they're quite wordy. Their sentences are very, very long. Sometimes they're like this was a paragraph-long sentence. Although possibly, I think that it could be rewritten, and you could rewrite it yourself for your own family of the things that would be useful to you. It's like a cookbook, Sometimes I'll get a cookbook, but there are only a few recipes in it I really like, and it would be nice to put it all in together. It would be nice to put all this together, things you really like and you would use, and create your own little book. And you can do it with a journal. Although possibly timid as individuals, as a club we are brave enough. For a party of 14 or 16 girls, including, and I mentioned you could just do this with your family or with yourself, our little chaperone may go with impunity where it would not be so pleasant for one to venture alone. And they have a chaperone, I guess it's a little brother, and they have the sketch of the costumes there. Interesting, isn't it? Once a week, all through that delightful spring, the club might have been seen, now upon a road leading in this direction. I just need to adjust something here. Now and that, and often as we stepped aside to allow a carriage to pass, its occupants would lean forward smiling and waving their hands in greeting. For the moment, perhaps, feeling in sympathy with the vigorous young life that preferred this mode of locomotion to being carried about on the downiest cushions of the easiest of carriages. Yeah, that must have been something, you're walking and your feet are hurting and you're exhausted and somebody drives past in a comfy carriage. We continued our tramps into the early winter, when the frosty crispiness of the air made it very bracing, and the brisk exercise of walking brought the healthy color to cheek and lips. Such a club as this, which at the same time promotes health. You hear that airplane? I haven't heard an airplane go past here in 2 months. We have such clear air now. We're on a flight path. And Mr. S knows exactly what flight that is because he used to work at the airport, and he would look at his watch and he'd say, well, that's going to Colorado. As a society, the walking club is one of the most informal activities. No officers are needed, although a secretary may sometimes be found useful when any word is to be sent to the absent members. Now that would be fun. Maybe one of the children is not feeling well or decides to stay home, and so the walking club will get together and make a note and send it saying, we missed you. The membership of the club should be large enough to ensure the attendance of at least 12 on each walk. For in this case, as I have said, safety lies in numbers. At a place of meeting previously appointed, but of course this would be great just for the whole family, and the parents would be there too, so you wouldn't have to worry about safety if you had your parents with you. The first walk should not be too long. 3 miles in a good walk to start with. 3 miles? Man, these people were hardy, weren't they? I suppose that'd just be 1.5 miles up and 1.5 miles back. I have to really watch myself because walking is so interesting. Before you know it, you've gone 1/4 of a mile, but you realize, uh-oh, I've got to walk back. My feet are going to start feeling pretty hot. So that's one thing you have to be careful about, is not to it's like filling your plate too full, you know. Gradually, the distance can be lengthened, and the club be able to take a 10-mile walk without feeling fatigue. Oh my goodness. Well, I suppose if you weren't in a rush, it wouldn't feel fatiguing. So here is this is in a little frame here, and I might print that for you, put that out for you. But see, there's some instructions on to make the exercise of walking healthful and therefore the more enjoyable. These are the rules that should be observed. First, carry the body erect on the hips, the shoulders thrown back, the chest raised, and the head square on the shoulders. Breathe through the nose while walking rapidly, otherwise the mouth will become dry and the breath short. Wear loosely fitting clothes that will permit a free motion of the limbs, and shoes with broad, moderately thick soles and low heels. In all cases, a girl's skirts should be supported from the shoulders, and in walking any distance, it is absolutely necessary for comfort that there should be no weight upon the hips. Very interesting. I think that was from an old book on health, where they believed that you shouldn't, because the clothing was quite heavy, so a skirt could weigh 9 pounds once you added all the petticoats under it, and then the heaviness of the skirt itself. And so the health officials were saying they shouldn't have so much weight on the hips. I thought that was interesting. So ladies, I hope that this has been somewhat valuable to you, and that you'll remember this verse here to give you some. Oh, I wanted to talk to you about 2 other things. And I was listening to this the other day from an old tape we had, and it was someone that was talking about how you have to make a difference in the world. And in order to make a difference in the world, you have to leave your comfort zone. And I decided that I could refute that, because I remember being very young and someone said, well, what are you going to do with your life? Shouldn't you make a difference in the world? And of course, if you express the idea that you'd like to have a family and you'd like to stay home and raise your family, maybe teach your children, they would say, but you need to get out of your comfort zone. In other words, that's too ordinary. So they'd use this phrase, get out of your comfort zone, and I've decided today to refute that, because so many of us are struggling to find a comfort zone because the world keeps us so uncomfortable, so in such a upheaval all the time, that we need to find a comfort zone and stick to it if it's peaceful, if it's healthy, and don't let people tell you to, quote, get out of your comfort zone. And also, don't let them tell you to you have to make a difference in the world. You really don't. You have to make a difference in your home and with your family. And so your comfort zone can be your home and your family, and you develop that by your routine. First, start out with your appearance, then make your list, and then make sure you have your tea, and read something that's good for your mind, and develop a comfort zone. because then you have stability. And make sure you pray and read your Bible and develop a comfort zone. And don't let anybody intimidate. See, those are intimidating remarks. You need to, quote, get out of your comfort zone. You need to make a difference in the world. So in other words, it's all more important than the home. And so this is what we want to do, is go back to the home and make it your comfort zone. And also, my comfort zone is this. It's the Word of God. And so don't let anybody talk to you about that. Those are sales gimmicks. Comfort zone, get out of your comfort zone and make a difference in the world. Those are sales gimmicks to keep you interested in whatever endeavor that someone's trying to keep you in or sell you. So I just thought I might have a little fun with that, because I made kind of a little fun of one of Eleanor Roosevelt's sayings the other day. I thought, to be fair, I should make fun of some of the sales gimmicks. So, ladies, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you get rest, get your at least your kitchen cleaned up, and got a lot done today. And I enjoy hearing from you if you have time. I won't insist that you leave a comment if you don't have time. And so I'll see you next time. Thank you for all your encouragement. Goodbye.